everybody, and welcome back for another episode of The Overlay, a poker podcast brought to you by CCG Poker, the #1 charity poker location in the Midwest, / the United States, / the planet Earth, and the solar system, possibly the galaxy, and other unknown galaxies. I can't imagine there's a better charity poker organization, even in a different galaxy that are playing, right, Brando?
I agree.
Yeah, for sure. Anyways, hey, everybody, it's Ken here with...
Me, Brandon, your co-host.
Yeah, very, very cool. Is there anything like a step below?
Very cool.
Is there anything like a step below a co-host? Like
the assistant to the co-host?
Yeah, you're like the assistant to the host. Assistant to the co-host. Gosh, my computer's binging. Okay.
A lot of dinging.
Lots of dinging done. Okay, dings or dong. Dongs are done. Hey everybody, Ken here, Overlay Podcast, where we talk about all things that happen on Ken's computer. What are we going to talk about today, Brandon? I'm going to dive right in because I don't have anything good to talk about. Oh, I have a few.
I thought we were going to talk about you not being able to get into your security
No, that's fine. We have a new security system here at CCG, and I was unable to get into the to turn the alarm off, and then they told me that my code was wrong, and I was like, I promise you it's not. This is me. They're like, well, we're going to have to send the police. I was like, cool, I'm on the lease. Do whatever you got to do. I bluffed. They took it.
For the record, I'm like anti two-factor authentication.
Me too. It's a pain in the ass and it takes a long time. But go ahead.
That's it. That sums up everything I'm going to say.
I thought you had but there was that one time I got hacked. None of that happened.
No, if you're going to get hacked, you're like the two-way. Like, I hate when I'm on my phone and I try to log into, like, say, a YouTube TV for a new TV. And then it's like, oh, well,
let me text my phone.
Or you text my phone, or you tell me to go to my YouTube app, which is obviously already signed in on my phone. Right. So I click YouTube and then click accept. Like, I could have done that if I was trying to hack in. Yeah. And I get it would be from somebody else that, like, wasn't on my phone that would be hacking in from somewhere else.
Right.
But it just seems like such a waste.
Yep. Seems like
and then like authenticator apps where you have to like type in the Google authenticator
again, it's
code.
On your phone, and if my phone has been stolen physically or hacked into, like, wouldn't they be able to get all of that information? It's like an emergency exit door on an airplane. What good is that really going to do me? I got to open the door at 30,000 feet. It's like, oh, use this Google two-way authenticator. As long as you have control of your phone and you don't lose it and it's not open and the guy beat the shit out of me and then put my phone in front of my face to steal my face on top of it, like, what's going to happen?
For sure. And that's what it's like, using my Gmail email and password to log in, and then it two-way authenticates it by like making me just using another version of the Google, where if I had that username and password, I could just log into that too and then verify it. It's like, if you got my shit, you got my shit. Like, you can't two-way authenticated. It doesn't really.
Is hey, to bring this back around to poker, this is exactly how I feel when I call with king high flush draws. Like, if they got it, they got it. I don't care. I lose. Two-way factor here is not going to help me in any way, shape, or form. I, A, am not good enough to fold the king high flush, the second nuts, and B, I just don't really care. If you got it, you got it. You get my money. That's it. Yeah, I'm hoping you're stone cold bluffing with like the nut blocker, and you think I'm good enough to fold. Well, the joke's on you, pal. I am not good enough to fold.
Right. The mistake is you
think I'm good enough. I'm not.
Right. Well, if he's got the king or the queen high flush, he'll certainly fold to a pot-sized bet.
Nope.
Pot call.
Nope.
Oh.
Nope. Not true, sir. Not true. Anyways, let's do...
So that's the end of my two-way rant.
Yeah, no, it's your bad beat story. It's sometimes bad beat stories don't include poker, but that's a bad beat story. I gotcha. I hate that stuff too. It took me forever to get into there, and then finally I was like, ADT just opened up. Like, they were like, cool, you've tried for this for an hour, so we figure you're good enough to just take care of it. So... Anyways, back to poker and the question at hand today, Brando. We are going to talk about the big blind modified rule that was played at the RunGood series out in California. Where was it?
Tunica? Was it Horseshoe? I don't know.
It was a RunGood event.
RunGood series,
which is event. like a regional, but they just don't do any events here in the Midwest. Similar to like an MSPT
for
the Midwest poker players. Yeah, they're kind of like
early days when it was just literally like Illinois, Iowa, Michigan,
they're like a second
Minnesota.
tier. They're like a second tier tour, meaning there's like your top tier tours, WSOP, WPT. Really, that's it. And then you get like your first tier tour or second tier tours. You got like the old school HPTs, the MSPT, RunGood series. There was a group out in Texas that was doing something called like I don't know. They fell by the wayside as well. But there was like a Texas group that was like doing events and like, they run like little mini circuit events and they're awesome. And don't get me wrong, RunGood's really cool. I think they do a lot of innovative stuff. And that's partly what we're going to talk about today. They got some really cool clothes. I think they started as a clothing company run by poker players and then just kind of started doing events as well, which as somebody who's in the event world, I kind of dig it. I think it's super cool and it makes sense. But in their latest RunGood series tournaments, the whole series, they implemented a rule about I think they just called it the big blind rule?
Big blind protection, BBP.
BBP. Oof. BBP. BBP. Sounds like a Star Wars android. Tell us what the BBP is, Brando. Big blind protection. Do you remember?
BBP, I do remember. It is when they're breaking a table in a tournament.
Uh-huh.
They take the person that paid the big blind and the small blind and the person who would have had the button this next hand.
Correct.
If it wasn't for them moving you. And they move you and they make sure that you do not go back into the blinds.
Correct.
And if you do go and they place you to a seat that's under the gun or in the big blind, they make you sit out until after the button.
Okay. I don't remember that last part, but that seems to be pretty good.
That's how, like, they don't, like, it's not like they sit and they, like, choose seats. It's like, oh, this seat's okay. Like, they still move you to a random seat. However,
Correct.
if you are in the big blind the next hand, if you were to get moved right into the big blind or into under the gun, they let you sit out until after the button.
So the line in the sand was under the gun +1, meaning if you got 2 free hands, then that was fine. It's just one free hand. Correct. So it's under the gun +1 was the line, meaning, and I read somewhere that they implemented this by giving everybody who was, like you said, who had just paid the big blind, the small blind, and the current button, if those people were moving, maybe not the button.
No, I think it's just one person.
And it was just whoever just paid the big blind?
The big blind and the small blind. You had to pay both blinds to get the protection. I just briefed up on this. I looked it up.
Okay, yeah, because this is starting to make sense. Because when Alan Kessler was the gentleman that made me aware of this on Twitter, and on
Twitter. Yep, that's the first time I saw it.
I was following him on Twitter. I love his tweets. Alan, we're still trying to reach out to you to be on the show. Hopefully, you will take me up on that request.
Hey, he'll be in Chicagoland again.
I'm going to hit him up. I'm going to keep hitting him up like a stalker until he either files paperwork or is on the show. So good luck, sir. We've also played many mixed game tournaments together, and he has no idea that me and the guy with the great hair and also the great voice is the same on the podcast. Anyways, I had saw it on him, and he had just kind of made it very simple, where it was the idea of this big blind protection was when a table breaks, if you were the big blind, it didn't kind of really talk about small blind or button or anything else. It just said if you had just paid the big blind, that you got like a red rack or a blue rack, some kind of different colored rack.
Different rack.
Yeah, let's just say a blue rack. You got a blue rack, and the tournament director would give you that rack, indicating that you had just paid the big blind, which means when you moved to your new table, if you moved into the big blind, I guess at that point, something would happen. Now, they didn't really talk about it. They were like, oh, you wouldn't move into the big blind. But you're right. It's still random seating. Theoretically, you could be put into it. But again, I think what you found out later is that the way that the protection rule worked is that player would occupy that big blind seat, but they wouldn't actually pay the big blind. They wouldn't get any hands until the button passed them, in which case they would sit down and then they would play. So they're kind of getting a free pass to actually dodge the big blind, right?
So I did misspeak. It's only if you move into the under the gun spot, that's good enough. So it's just not straight into the blinds.
Okay.
So really, you would want to be placed into the big blind, then get to sit out, and then you start
correct
on the button.
Because if you went to under the gun and you were the big blind next hand, theoretically, you're fucked. But that was
I
only
think
the
this
big
is
blind.
where the rule breaks down, right?
It does, and this is where everybody goes down because it's, and this is why I think ultimately the rule failed. And I would say pretty safely that at this point it has failed. They are not doing it again. There's another Run Good series coming up. They're doing like a Run Good road trip, which again, as a poker marketer, I think it's a great name and it's a really cool concept, and I kind of dig it. And all right, super
dig it.
Are
they not continuing to do it? Because in the article that Liam initially wrote,
also CCG original player Liam, who's just gone crazy. I love him.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah. He's like vlogging
he wrote
now.
In his article that they were going to continue using it. Now, I wonder if this was prior to them using it and then this all failing. I'm thinking that maybe his article was like,
I think the article
written September 1st, and then the series was after that.
Yeah, I think the article was written and then as like, oh, we are going to be doing, because the article came out on Poker News, and trying to find it and talk at the same time. It seemed to me that like he had written the article as in like day 1A was firing, and it was like they're going to implement this for the entire series. I think the idea was they were going to do it for that tournament. I think there was a lot of issues with it. I think they realized it didn't have the effect that they were hoping it would have, meaning the tournament directors, it did not give the players the effect and benefits that they were hoping to provide for them or make players feel better, because as poker players do, we found another excuse to complain about, and it was just a level down. And I think that's ultimately, it was like, well, if we're still going to have complaints and it just changes the bar of where the complaints come from,
does that really solve anything? No.
And it doesn't solve anything. We should go back to the original ways, and that the original means is just truly and totally randomization, meaning you do not get to pick. Nothing happens. Theoretically, you could go big blind, small blind, table breaks. You move directly into the big blind, pay big blind, small blind. You could be a 10 big blind stack, pay the big blind, play the small blind, break a table, go to your new table, sit right in the big blind, pay the big blind, small blind, which means if you had 10 big blinds and you were playing a big blind ante tournament, you are now down to like no blinds. You just paid 5 big blinds. You paid half of your stack. Granted, you got to see 4 hands. Like, you didn't get anything for free. Like, you got to see 4 hands. You chose to not do anything with them. I would have jammed on the first one, so I didn't have to worry about paying the other 3, but that's just me. The idea being is that, we're trying to eliminate the fact that you don't go 4 hands in a row of playing blinds, paying blinds due to the fact that a table breaks. However, it's perfectly fine to pay big blind, small blind, move under the gun, get 1 free hand, and then pay big blind, small blind. So then at that point, it's like, well, great. If I play 4 out of 5, it's fine. It's just 4 out of 4 is not cool. Like, no, it should be that one. And then the under the gun +1 guy goes, well, hold on, that's not cool. What about me? Like, I should also be in on this as well. And then it was like under the gun +3. And then next thing you know, the hijack's like, I also think this is a terrible idea for me to move into this position. I just paid big blinds about 40 minutes ago. Like, you know, I think the biggest issue.
But that is where the rule, that's just where it breaks down, right? It's that
different people complain.
Where do you draw the line? And
of what's fair and what's not fair.
Line that 4 out of 4 is not fair, but 4 out of 5 is fair.
Correct.
Seems like a dumb rule.
And again, like, it also, there's personal skewing of the rule, meaning if I just paid my small and big, like, maybe I meander about and kind of do what a lot of poker players do and take a really long time to rack my chips and do other stuff, so that I feel like I don't know, some players, I feel like they try to slow down and dodge because they think they're going to dodge the big blind and get something free out of it, or they don't have to pay the blinds. But like, the clock is running. I would rather get as many hands in as possible. And again, yes, do I remember tournaments that I have played in that are big tournaments that I wanted to play well in and were probably higher on my price point than I'm normally used to? I mean, I'm not talking about $120 deep stacks. I'm talking about $1,100, regional tournaments or WSOP tournaments, where they're $1,500 buy-ins. Where, yeah, I've gone that exact scenario. Paid a big blind, paid a small blind. Didn't get to my button because they broke the table literally on my button, which sucks. I didn't get any of the benefit of just paying those blinds. And then I moved, and what do you know? I'm sitting down. Oh, sir, you're the big blind. Good thing you're here. Great. Fuck. I wish I'd have taken 30 more seconds, and then I would have gotten 2 free hands and the button, and it would have been great. But no, I'm on the other side, and now I got to pay my blinds. We've all experienced that. But the thing that
you really only can, like, dodge the blinds if you like know where the
correct,
button's
which
at.
nobody does. And again, it's all random. But here's my point: like we've all experienced that, right? Like everybody's had that nut low experience where you're like, shit, that really sucks. We've also all experienced the nut high where you are under the gun, you're about to pay the big blind, you're a small stack, and what do you know? All right, this table's breaking,
You moved
everybody.
to behind
Here's
the
your new
button.
spots. And then you move to your new table, and you're like right behind the button. You're like, boo-boo, bitches, I just got 2 free rounds. And we're all happy, and nobody says anything. Nobody complains about that. Like, here's the flip side of the big blind protection rule. Do we give the big blind who just paid small blind, big blind, and missed their button so they can't play 4 hands in a row without experiencing a button? I get that. Maybe that's the line. But then on the flip side, does the other guy get a yellow rack that goes, okay, you can't move to behind the, right? Like, what about the other side of the coin? Like, it's just, it's like you said, it's when the rule breaks down and we start going at it. In theory, big blind protection works great. In physical implementation, it's impossible. It's just, it doesn't work.
I agree.
I wish it did because it would be kind of fun. But
And it's also, you got to remember, it's also only that one player that played the big blind and the small blind. So somebody can pay the big blind, but not play the small blind and go right into the big blind and pay the big blind again, then the small blind. That's 3 out of 3. And they're saying that's okay. So 3 out of 3 is okay. 4 out of 5 is okay. But 4 out of 4 is not okay.
correct.
Like, it seems like a dumb, like there's way too many other situations.
There's a lot of things. And like, how do you make,
and there's moving parts and it just,
well, and again, like, how does the tournament director know that that's exactly what happened? And I mean, we're talking about one hand. I don't know. It just seems really hard to implement. And again, I kind of love the fact that poker is truly in the justice system. You know, Lady Justice is supposed to be blind, right? She doesn't see anything. And I kind of feel like table draws, that's what I want. I want it to be blind. Because you and I both know from playing in lots of tournaments for all of these years that we played in games, and we've played a fair share of both tournaments, home games, cash games, big tournaments, little tournaments, you know, all kinds of different stuff. Like, table draw really does matter. And you and I and Ice Haze have talked about this before about the World Series, where it's like, you know, and sometimes, well, with that mystery bounty, I was cruising. I had like 180K, and I sit down, and Liam, who's funny, we were talking about this because of the article that Liam wrote about in Poker News. He came up to me because he was reporting for Poker News, and which is super cool because the only chance I'm ever getting into Poker News is by knowing the reporter, which I do. It's Liam. He's been playing at CCG since he was like 18. And he literally hung around to see if I could like double up, and he's like, oh man, your table's stacked. I didn't know a single person there. I have the beautiful ignorance is bliss. I didn't know a single person at my table. And he's like, oh, that guy's a 3 bracelet winner. That guy's got 2 rings. That guy's got over 4 million in cashes. That guy's a huge cash game player. And I'm just like, fuck, Liam, I don't need to know any of this stuff. I'd have been happy having no idea who was playing and just continuing down my game. But sometimes you find stuff out and it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I would almost argue that there might be more variance in table draw than like anything else.
Absolutely.
Especially in really big tournaments or really small tournaments. Like something that's only like 2 tables. You can be at the good table, the bad table, and it just make all the difference. Or if there's, you know, it's a WSOP main event, there's just the easiest tables in the room and there's super hard tables in the room. And like, depending on where you pop up.
Sometimes you get good ones and sometimes you get bad ones.
And I mean, sometimes you're at a good table and you're going to bag top 10% in chips. And then there's times you're at a bad table and you're out before dinner break. And it's literally maybe because of the table draw and not even like the cards at the table. I think table draw is super underrated and completely random.
That's why, I mean, it is random. And I think that's the way it needs to be. It's one of the truest things about poker is that it's random. I know it doesn't feel random, and sometimes it feels like live poker is rigged, but it's not. It's random. They're just cards. They fall how they fall, and you know, just because you got a 1 or 2% chance, sometimes the long shots hit. And you know, I think when we start trying to take poker, which is such a truly blind and random game, And then start making these things where like, well, if you're in a tournament and you're the big blind and you get screwed, you can't get screwed. But if you're the big blind, you move to under the gun, that's fine to get screwed on. Like, all it does is move the bar of who bitches about moving into a certain spot and how unfortunate it is that that time is when they had to move. Or, you know what I mean? Like, it just causes more drama than it's actually worth.
Yep, I agree.
Are there any rules that you would change in poker that obviously the big blind protection rule kind of failed? Good try, RunGood. I think it was, like we said, I think it was a good idea. It just didn't work out. Are there any rules in poker that you would change, either tournament directing wise or playing wise, or can you think of anything that sticks out to you that you would go, oh man, this is something like we need, as the poker as a community needs to address?
Not on the spot. I mean, there's definitely been times I've been sitting there and been like, that's a dumb rule. But not that you put me on the spot.
Can you think of something that you thought this is a dumb rule?
I mean, I'm currently trying to think and talk.
I mean, I can think of something. I was thinking of something today, and it was during the 10,000 PLO event. And when I lost, I very well... It happened at CCG on Sunday night, too. Somebody just yelled out, Kevin. I won't say the name of the person, Kevin. I just want to make sure that they rename anonymous Kevin. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, definitely Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin. Yeah. Fucking Kevin. I love Kevin, but he's a pain. Kevin just yells out, I got the nut low. It just yelled it out. And then, like, everybody was like, starts mucking and folding and putting stuff down. Like, they didn't even wait. And I was just like, well, hang on. You can't just yell, I have the low, without showing any cards. Or
I mean, you can.
It totally worked because like two people had folded, and I was just like, I don't think there's a low out there. And I won't even go into that situation because there was a low, and he did have a low, and he ended up scooping the low pot, but it didn't matter. It was a very random thing, and I feel like that's something that poker players. It's not a rule. Actually, it is a rule, and it kind of goes the other direction. But I feel like players in general are nervous to show their cards. I wish poker players weren't so embarrassed to show their cards. I think for whatever knowledge that you're going to give up for other players seeing what cards you just played, in the long run is not worth the money that you'll lose or the pots that you don't win that you should have won because you just didn't show your cards. I don't know if that's, I guess that's not a rule. I just feel like that's like a thing that I wish players would do or think about.
I mean, this is just more so.
Maybe
like
it's a dealer thing. Like, I wish the dealers were better about pushing up the winning hand. Because, like, during the 10K PLO, the guy's just like, I have a straight. I was like, prove it. Everybody looked at Alex Foxen looked at me. What was the other kid? Will Jaffe?
Yeah.
They both looked at me like, what? And I was just like, I just want to make sure he's got a straight. You can't just yell straight and expect me to think he got a straight. And he did have a straight. And it was fine, but like it wasn't apparent right away. And like everybody kind of did a double look, and they were like, "Oh yeah." And we all did the standard poker player. You count on your fingers: 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's got it.
Well,
4
those
through
are
8.
the exact number I was thinking.
Yeah, that's what he had. He had flopped like the flop was like King 3, 5, and he had like 4, 5, 6, 7. Like he had 4, 5, 6, 7. The flop was 3, 4, so he had flopped what?
Yeah.
Like basically any card under a fucking 8.
9. Yeah.
Right, 9. Gave him a straight. Granted, I had like ace, king, jack, 10 double suited. One of them was hearts, and hearts flopped on the board. So I was like, fuck it, this is where I'm getting in. I flopped top pair, top kicker with the nut flush draw. Like, I'm ripping it. We're going to see what happens. And sure enough, I ended up thinking he had, and I knew damn well just looking at his cards, he's either got 2 pair or a straight, because like there's just too many little cards and middle cards for him to have it. Like, yeah. I didn't even need to look that hard. I knew I had lost. In my mind, I was just thinking heart, because I wanted a heart. But when the flop was like every card under 8, they were all low cards. Like, obviously, there's something in there that I can't beat with a pair of kings.
With a pair of kings, right.
But I made the dealer push up the winning hand. I was like, can you please push up the winning hand? Because I wanted it to be more official. And I guess maybe the point I'm trying to make is that I wish players would just know the rules. And, if you don't, or don't be nervous or don't be bullied into like not feeling comfortable at the table and like, I mean, don't be a dick. It's not like I was being a jerk. I was just said to the dealer, I'm like, can you please push up the winning hand? And like he finally did, and then I was able to look at it. And even the dealer took a second. And again, the dealers are probably nervous about making a mistake as well, which we all know happens. But he ends up putting it up, and I see his 5-6. You know, like turn was a 7 and 8,
playing 5-6 out of his hand.
Correct. He had like 4-6 for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like that's what he had. There was a 4. There was a 3, a 5, whatever the fuck. I mean, he had a straight, so it was fine. But
he had a straight.
Yeah, the drunk. And it was like a drunk guy in like a stupid visor. You know what I'm talking about? Like a fratty visor. But he was like in his 50s. Yep. I was like, how fucking lame are you? So like, I really think I also called this guy or repopped him because I was like aggravated by this stupid fucking visor and his drunken like, oh, you don't have 1800? I don't drink anything but 1800. I was like, fuck off, dude. You're wearing a fucking visor. Like, come on. And a fucking popped collar polo. Like, seriously? Telling us all how much you drank today. What are you, 12? Or 18? I guess 12 is not really normal.
Yeah, how's the 12?
What are you, like, 19-year-old frat guy from U of I, ISU, Western? He looked like an Eastern guy to me. Anyways, that's my story about the big blind protection. Also, also protect your you just protect your rights as a poker player. And no, sometimes, like anything, sometimes the rules are in your favor, and other times the rules are not in your favor, and you just got to take the good with the bad. I think this is a take the good with the bad in the Run Good series idea.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in the long run, it's just always going to even out.
That's supposedly what happens with variance. If you play long enough, it'll happen.
I mean, obviously, my argument to that as well, when I'm playing a 10K PLO and it happens to me, it's much more, it hurts a lot more than when I'm playing a $20 early bird. But that's still just like it happened once. It didn't happen once, so it balances out. It's like winning races. It's like, oh, everyone's winning races at 50-50. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but when you're at the final table of the main event and you go 3 for 3 and win all 3 races, and then you lose 3 races in an early bird in a row, and that evens you out. Obviously, the 3 winning.
You came out way ahead because you got your 3 winners during the WSOP main event, and you got your 3 losers in early bird and second chance, $20, $40, $60 tournaments. Right. It is what it is. I mean, like you said, I played in that tournament on Sunday, the PLO Extravaganza, which was fun. I'm still not a big fan of Big O, although I liked playing Big O because I feel like the Omaha progression of the knowledge of players, and we've talked about this before, when you go from no limit to PLO, the gap of what player knowledge is much bigger in PLO, meaning it's the players aren't as good. And then when you get down to like high-low, that gets even a wider gap, meaning there's more room to like be able to navigate games, and like players are playing very bad, making bad mistakes, thinking they're good, they're good moves. And when you go to Big O, it's just exponentially worth.
The edge is just wider in those games.
I was trying.
There's more variables. There's more cards.
Well, and
split pot game,
and the game's not as broken. Meaning, like players don't know the right moves. Where I feel like,
solved.
Like there's, charts that people are looking at when they're in the big blind, and they have this, and this happens, and they're facing this kind of bet on this type of player. That they have a very like. If they're studied type, like there's a lot more players like that than like PLO. It's like, fuck it, I got a feeling, I don't know.
There's just the combination of hands and, all the different situations is obviously way different when you start adding more cards and stuff. With only 2 cards, I mean, there's 170 something hands.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, everybody can have ranges for the button and the small button and the big blind and hold them when it's like, oh, my hold them under the gun range is literally 9 hands. Like, you can highlight the 9 hands on a chart and memorize those pretty easy. Right. You're under the gun open in a PLO game. It's like, it's pretty hard to be, oh yeah, well, it's 18%. It's like, all right, well, what hands are in the 17th percentile and what hands are in the 20th percentile?
Right.
With like, King, Jack, 2, 3 double suited. Is that in there or not? Like, and maybe that's not in there, but 9, 8, 7, 4 double is. And it's like, can't just go by, kings beat queens and queens beat jacks and, the way down, king highs beat queen highs and that kind of stuff. There's just so many more variables that then there's so many more weaknesses in people's games, and it
This is why I
allows you
love
to,
PLO.
you know,
And when you move
that's
that
why I
into
love
PLO
PLO.
high-low, it gets even wider range of
There's just way more mistakes to be made, or
Yes.
glaring things that
And don't get
seem
me wrong, when it comes to
good that are
PLO,
really bad.
I feel like I have a lot better understanding of the game and kind of where I should be and shouldn't be. Whereas if I throw in the high-low factor, I feel like I make a lot of mistakes that I would normally not make in regular PLO. And then you throw in an extra card and call it Big O, and then I'm thinking, this is way different. I have no idea what good starting hands are. I think this looks good. I got like 5 cards under 8. That means I gotta be able to make a low, right? I don't know. It was awesome. But all my runouts like were really good in the $60 tournament. Like I ran really good. Like if I needed to hit a club, I hit a club. If I needed to hit a red 8, I hit a red 8. And I ended up getting third in the tournament. And that was the last time my run good stopped because I needed to hit a club draw or a spade draw, whatever it was, or a jack, and I didn't get either one of them, and that's fine. I busted third. I chopped the last outs. I was very happy. It was like a $400 winner on a $60 entry. I'm like, this is money. Then as the poker gods just keep coming, they're like, oh, we're going to start a 1-2 PLO game, and I was just like, this day is just getting better. So then I go sit down with my free $400, which is really only costing me $60, right, Brandon? We don't count that as winners. It's just moving the table somewhere else. And my run good in the $60 tournament that afforded me to get into this PLO game, which could actually make a dent in some poker bankrolls. Guess what happened then? I couldn't dodge anything. I was like a fat kid at dodgeball, just getting wrecked. I couldn't dodge anything. Wrenches, buckets, balls, nothing. I just kept hitting in the face every second. I literally kept saying to the dealer, don't pair the board. Pairs the board. No heart. Heart. Anything but a 7. Boom, 7. Oh, wait, a 7 of spades would be cool. And then he would just pair the board in the end with that 7 that I just requested the hand before. I couldn't get anything. Every time I turned, it was like the complete reversal of roles. I had turned so many nut hands that ended up being losers because I couldn't get anybody to fold, and that's just poker. It happens, and sometimes you win those races, and sometimes you don't. And when you do, that's great. And when you don't, the world's awful and sad.
Man, that's quite a rant to get onto PLO cash games from a no-limit hold'em tournament rule.
Big blind protection.
Yeah, big blind protection, and you end up in $60 tournaments and PLO cash games. But hey.
Yeah. That's how we roll here at the Overlay. Well, anyways, thank you for listening to the Overlay. We are up over like 35,000 downloads, which is just fucking crazy to me. So thank you so much to everyone who listens. Make sure you share us with one of your poker friends. If you're in the Chicagoland area, come check out Brandon or myself at CCG Poker. Pretty much anytime a CCG event is going on, you are bound to run into one of us. We'll be at the WSOP in Elgin. Maybe I'll have some cool Overlay swag. So if you're listening to this now at the end of September, beginning of October, hit up Brandon or I either through Twitter or at a CCG event, and we'll get you some stickers or some patches or some shirts. I think we're going to do some fun stuff because we've got WSOP in Elgin, and then like MSPT coming to Ameristar or something. Isn't that happening?
Horseshoe first, October 5th through the 16th.
There you go. Horseshoe.
Next week, or 2 weeks from now.
Oh, shit. All right, I better get on my ass to get some T-shirts. Damn. Okay. Hey, sorry, remind me to get some extra T-shirts for the Overlay.
Yeah, it starts, assuming this episode's coming out on Thursday the 28th.
Yep.
October 5th, 1 week from today.
Holy shit. That'll be awesome. All right, cool. We'll see you at the WSOP at the Horseshoe. Bye, everybody.
Farewell.